सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शंकरं लोकशंकरं शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वंदे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः. So today happens to be Friday. Today we are doing Upadesha Sahasri, 14th chapter, dream and memory, at the 40th verse. Chinma, acha, 37th verse. 37th verse, ji. Chinmatra Jyotishaha Nitya Tamah Tasminna Vidyate. So, we have to understand one thing, that ignorance is not in the self. It doesn't qualify the self. Even though it presupposes the presence of Atma, but it's not had by the Paramatma. It presupposes the presence of Paramatma. But avidya is not there, and that is why it is said here, Chinmatra Jyotishaha Nityam Tamaha Tasmin Avidyate. There is no ignorance in Chinmatra Jyoti. In awareness, there is no, in the light of awareness, there is no ignorance. Ignorance is illumined, but what is illumined, it doesn't qualify the illumina. Illuminer is not qualified by the illumined. The seen is not qualified by the seer, doesn't qualify the seer. The heard doesn't qualify the hearer. That is in the same manner the consciousness, because the consciousness is self-evident. One is Pramana Siddham, the objects are Pramana Siddham, they have to be understood that they are directly known by the Swatasiddha Atma. Swatasiddha Atma is, and therefore Swatasiddha Atma is something that is that has to be understood. They are not only Pramana Siddham, known by awareness. They are known by awareness directly. And the objects are known directly by the Atma. The Atma is Swatasiddham, and therefore self-existent. And therefore here Chinmatra Jyotisha Nityam. Nityam Tamaha. Nityam Tamaha Tasmin Navidite. Nityam Tamaha. Chinmatra, it is there, it is for the Chinmatra, it presupposes the existence of Chinmatra Jyoti, but it doesn't qualify Chinmatra Jyoti. That is very important. It presupposes the silentness of the consciousness. The consciousness doesn't have the will. The will also is a part of embodiment. The will also is also a part of embodiment. Embodiment is an error. The will itself is, individuals have wills. The individuals have will, but the consciousness doesn't. That will doesn't qualify consciousness, and therefore, katham karyam mamaivadya nityamuktasya sishyate. How can there be anything to be done for me? Anything to be accomplished? Katham karyam vidyate. How can there be anything to be done? The do's and don'ts don't apply to the Chinmatra Jyotihi, the consciousness. And that consciousness that we are. And that consciousness is what we are. And therefore consciousnness doesn't have any duty. Nitya muktasya avasishyate. Asishyate means it should be taken as avasishyate. How can there be any duty left over to be done by the jnani? And therefore a jnani is one who is not merely a person who understands the Shastra. A person who understands the Vastu is called a jnani. Vastu jnanam, Vastu swarupa, Atma swarupa, the one who understands the Atma. Atma is a Shabda that is found in the Upanishads. But that Atmatvam is also Adhyaropitam. It is Adhyaropitam means it is imposed by the Shastra. Shastra does the Kalpana that it is Atma, that it is Brahma, that it is unlimited, etc. When we say the unlimited, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, it is a Swarupa Lakshanam. Satyam is Swarupa Lakshanam. Jnanam is Swarupa Lakshanam. Satyam Anantam, Anantam Satyam is Brahma. Anantam Jnanam is Brahma. In that manner, we have to understand. And therefore, the consciousness doesn't have any duty. If consciousness has no duty, then the one who understands the consciousness also has no duty, has nothing more to accomplish. Duty is there only when I want something to depend upon. I have a duty to be done only when I have something to be depend upon. A jnani does not depend upon pleasures. A jnani does not depend upon a house. A jnani doesn't depend upon any lights, and therefore he doesn't have to pay the bills. If he has to pay the bills, then he has a duty, and therefore if he has nothing more to accomplish, he has nothing more to accomplish because he is unlimited. Beyond unlimitedness, what can you accomplish, Ji? What can you accomplish beyond infinitude? Beyond infinitude, what can be accomplished by anybody? And therefore, a jnani has no duty. If we all have duty, that means there is a time, there is a person who has no duty also. The presence of everything, nobody wants to struggle, nobody wants to any duty, nobody wants to any karma, and he doesn't want any struggle. That means he struggles because he wants fullness, he wants completeness, he wants unlimitedness, he wants infinitude, and that happens to be his nature. And therefore, without the love for pain, the dislike for pains is nothing but the love for pleasure, the love for fullness. The love for fullness, when a person understands that fullness is his nature, that completeness is his nature, and therefore one doesn't have to take pleasures for a fullness. He has to understand himself, and therefore a person who has discovered the fullness of his being, he has no duties, he has no do's and don'ts. He doesn't have to follow the do's and don'ts. And therefore, Katham Karyam Mama Eva Adya. Adya means the after knowledge. Adya means today. These days, a jnani can say now, how can I have duty after knowing the truth? How can I have duties after knowing the truth? After knowing the truth, there is nothing beyond knowing the truth. There is nothing can better knowing the truth. Nothing can better the knowledge. Nothing can better the truth. Nothing, and to know the truth, even the knowledge doesn't qualify the truth. Please understand. The knowledge only corrects the wrong knowledge. The right knowledge corrects the wrong knowledge. Neither right knowledge nor wrong knowledge qualifies the self. The self is something that is free from the right knowledge as well as wrong knowledge. If you have the right knowledge about the law of gravitation, it doesn't become an adjective of that law. It only corrects your wrong knowledge. Any fact, for that matter, is free from the right knowledge and wrong knowledge of it. It is free. Any fact is free from the right knowledge or wrong knowledge of it. This is very important to note. Any fact, even a physical fact, even a scientist, minus the science also, minus the scientific jnanam, the jnanam corrects the ajnanam, but the jnanam and ajnanam don't qualify that scientific fact. Facts are not qualified by any right knowledge or wrong knowledge. Right knowledge corrects only wrong knowledge, and having corrected wrong knowledge, presupposing the wrong knowledge is the right knowledge. When the wrong knowledge is corrected, the right knowledge also goes away. And therefore, what is the use of knowing the truth then? if it has to go. I say, you have corrected the wrong knowledge. Embodiment is a wrong knowledge. That I am the body, that I am limited is a wrong knowledge. And therefore that wrong knowledge is corrected by the right knowledge. And therefore what more do you want? Beyond correction of the wrong knowledge, beyond the correction of wrong knowledge, what more do you want? What more does anybody want? Nobody wants beyond correction of the wrong knowledge. The right knowledge corrects the wrong knowledge, and it doesn't qualify the truth. And therefore, katham karyam mamayavad nityamuktasya, ever free. I am ever free. Nityamuktasya sishyate avasishyate. I am being ever free. I am being ever free. How can I have? Everybody works for freedom, and that freedom happens to be the nature of the self. And that nature, how can it be how can it be experienced, that freedom, through the pleasures? Because pleasure itself is bondage. Pleasure itself is a bondage, and therefore desire itself is a bondage. And therefore here, even though it doesn't qualify the self, it is a bondage. And therefore in embodiment alone you can have desires and bondages. And therefore all bondages are felt, and all kinds of bondage is felt only in embodiment. That embodiment itself is a wrong knowledge, and that wrong knowledge is corrected by the right knowledge. Neither right knowledge nor wrong knowledge qualify the truth. This is very important to note. Amanaskasya kachanta, and I am free from the mind also. Anything that is objectifiable, you are free from. You are not qualified by it. You are free from the objectifiable. Thought is objectifiable. Amanaskasya means free from the thought. Amanaskasya kachinta. How can there be any worry? Because worry can be had only in the form of the thought or memory. The thought means memory also is included. And therefore, when you think of something, when you remember something, you call it memory, but otherwise it is a thought only. When you think of the past object, or when you think of the present object, or when you think of the future object, you can have worry, and that worry is but the self is free from the thought. When the self is by nature, by that is its nature, ji. That is its nature. That it is free from the thought is its nature. And being free from the nature, how can the Atma be worried? How can the self be worried? And therefore, katham karyam amanaskasya kachanta kriyavan. How can he have the action also? Action also is nothing but mobility. Mobility, if you are located in space, then the movement from one point of space to another point of space is what is called mobility. And when there is mobility, there is sound also. That is why it is said space, the quality of the sound is, and the space, the sound is the quality of the sound. Meaning, the mobility is the quality of the sound. When there is mobility in the space, there is sound. And therefore, minus the sound, you cannot hear anything. And therefore, don't say that sound is something that is the nature of the space. The space, that is not the nature, that is a quality. Because space is a noun and its quality is space of the sound. Amanaskasya kachinta kriyavan. And how can there be any mobility? The infinite cannot be located in space. That is why I say, don't imagine Bhagavan to be present in some corner of the creation. Don't imagine Bhagavan. To everything, it is only a belief. A belief is something which is on the belief. Any belief is a wrong belief, ji. Any belief has got some blindness about it. What is not evident, you have to believe. You are evident about yourself. You are evident. Your existence is evident. And the Vedanta talks only about you. And therefore, there is the unevident is the unevident. The unevident, if you believe, that is called a belief. Believing the unevident is what is called the belief. And a belief can be destroyed. And a belief is something is blind. Every belief is blind, ji. And therefore every belief is blind. And therefore Bhagavan is not a matter for belief. Bhagavan is a matter for understanding. That is why it is said, Bhagavan Krishna also says, Jnayam yatat pravakshami yajñātvā amritam ashnute. I will teach you that to be understood the truth, by understanding which you will be liberated from anadimat param brahman nasattan nasaduchyate. And it is something, it is neither the sat nor sat, it is neither the manifest nor the unmanifest. It is yourself. The objects can be manifest, objects can become unmanifest. The universe can become manifest, the universe can become manifest, the universe can become unmanifest. But the Atma cannot become unmanifest. You are always present. And therefore it is said here, apranaha, kriyavan, indriyasya indriyasya kachinta. The senses also you don't have to, the senses also don't have to worry, because the senses themselves don't qualify. Pramanas themselves don't qualify the truth. The sense perception doesn't qualify the truth. The senses themselves do not qualify the truth. Please come, please sit down here. There is a chair here. And therefore here, amanaskasya kachinta kriyavan indriyasya ka. Indriyasya kachinta. Indriyasya means even the thought senses cannot have any worry. The senses are inert. The senses are inert. Even though the senses are, the objects are all pramana siddhas, that doesn't mean they are illumined by pramanas. They are illumined only by the Swata Siddha Atma. Atma only illumines all the objects through the pramanas. So pramanas are only meant for by dividing the form from the taste from the touch from the sound from the smell, etc. The Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, they're all really divided. They're all objectified by the senses. The senses are only space, the air, the fire, the water, the earth. And therefore, amanaskasya kachinta kriyavan indriyasya ka. The senses being inert by themselves cannot worry. And therefore, the thought, you are, and the one who worries is only the truth. The truth in the. Why? Because the truth is free from the thought. The truth is free from the thought means thought doesn't. Thought is there in the mind, is a part of the mind, but it is not. It doesn't qualify you. It doesn't qualify you, and therefore amanaskasya kachinta. It is free from the thought, and therefore there is no worry, and therefore amanaskasya kachinta kriyavan, and there is no movement also in the self. Indriyasya kachinta apranaha amanaha shubhraha. Apranaha, amanaha, shubhraha. This is the Shruti Vakyam. Apranaha. It is free from the prana. It is free from the breath. When you go to the deep sleep state, you don't experience, you don't feel the breath. You don't miss the breath also. When a person dies, he doesn't miss the embodiment. He doesn't feel the embodiment, he doesn't miss the embodiment also. I wish I had embodiment in this manner, he doesn't say. That is why when a person wakes up, he finds himself with embodiment. Similarly, when he is born, he finds himself with embodiment. He is not deliberate in having in desiring for embodiment. He just finds himself embodied. He finds himself embodied, and therefore there is no apranaha. In the deep sleep state, he is free from the breath. Apranaha, amanaha. He is free from the thought. Shubhraha, he is clean. The truth is clean. It is free from the thought, and it's free from the breath, and it's free from and it is clean. Shubhraha. Iti satyam shruter vachaha. This is indeed the true statement of the Shruti. Atma, you are indeed free from the thought, free from the thought, free from the breath, and you are clean. And therefore, Atma is clean, and therefore you don't have to unnecessarily become jittery about the uncleanliness in the world. Even though in Vyavahara, uncleanliness has to be cleaned up, the dirt has to be cleaned up, but it don't become jittery. When you become mentally jittery, it only harms you. You don't become jittery. There are people who are little dirty. Your servants, for example, don't become jittery about them. Jitteriness is itself your inner impurity, and therefore, which is better, Ji, to have the dust on the body or to have jitteriness in your mind? Both are the same. Is dust on the body creates jitteriness in your mind, and therefore don't be jittery about others' poverty or others' habits. Others' habits don't make faces. Don't make faces about others' habits. And therefore, akalatvat, adeshatvat. And the Atma being free from time and free from space. Akalatvat, adeshatvat. Atma is free from the time. And it not only it is free from the thought, it's not qualified by the thought, it's not qualified by the breath. It does not depend upon the breath. Even though you breathe, if you don't breathe, then you become unmanifest, all right. As an individual, you become unmanifest. And then you become manifest again in the next embodiment. You take another embodiment. Who takes embodiment? It is the Paramatma in the form of Jivatma takes embodiment. Having it is the Paramatma that takes the embodiment, not the Jivatma. Jivatma is the result of taking the embodiment. When the Paramatma takes the body, that is why it is said, Dehi Nityam Avadhyoyam, Dehe Sarvasya Bharata. Dehi Nityam, it is eternal. Dehi is eternal. Avadhyoyam, it cannot be killed. It is Sarvasya Deha, Sarvasya Dehe. It is there in everybody. The truth is there in everybody. It is the truth that takes the embodiment, next embodiment. Therefore, Akalatvat, it is free from the time. The time also doesn't qualify it. Adeshatvat, it is not located in space also, and therefore it is not, the time also doesn't qualify. And Adiktvat means directions also. The directions also don't qualify the self. The directions don't qualify the self. The directions are there. They're only sense evident. They are not self evident, please. In the light of the self evident self, they are not there. They are non separate from the self. And therefore, it is said adiktvat animittata, and therefore there is no reason. There is no reason also. There is nimitta also is not there. Nimitta also is not there. Supposing you have desha kala and desha kala and the directions and the nimitta. Nimitta means the reason. The reason is also not there for them to qualify. There is no reason. They are not adjectives of the Atma. They are not the adjectives of the Atma. Animittataha. Atmano naiva phalad. Atmanaha for the self. Naiva never. Kaladehe apeksha. Kaladehe apeksha means they have there is no dependency for time. There is no dependency of kala. There is no dependency for kala. There is no dependency upon their directions. There is no dependency upon nimittam for exist. Its existence is independent. Therefore, it does not depend upon desha, kala, vastu, etc. It's not located in the space. It is beyond time and space. It is free from time and space. Like in Sushupti, you are not in which place you are present in Sushupti, please tell me. Your body is there on the lying on the bed, all right. But you are there, you are not there in the body. You are very much You are not, you don't feel the space, you don't miss the space. Where you don't miss anything, that is the truth, please. Where you don't miss anything, that is the truth. You don't miss anything in the deep sleep state. That is because it is swapaha. Swayam apito gachati. Swayam apito gachati. Means swapaha means you go back to yourself. You are yourself. And therefore here it is said, Atmano naiva kaladeha apeksha dhyayataha sada. It is ever silent. Atma is ever silent. Atma is ever silent. Dhyayataha lelayati iva. It as the moves, lelayati iva. Dhyayati iva, as the concentrates, as the silent. It's not that Atma doesn't become moving. Atma is not something that moves and then becomes restless and then becomes quiet. It is always quiet. And therefore it is Jayataha. It is not like the mountains. The mountains, it's not that they are moving and then suddenly they become quiet. It's not like the musical chairs. You go around the chair and then suddenly you sit down in the chair. Then it becomes, having been moving, you become restful. Having been restless, you become restful. It's not like that. Atma is always nityam, it is ever restful. And therefore it is skaladeya apeksha jayataha sada. It is always restful. And therefore the restfulness is not something that is followed or preceded by restlessness. Therefore, restlessness is not the quality of the self. Restfulness alone is the quality. To be restful silence is its nature. The sound cannot take place outside silence. The sound is born of silence, please. The sound is born in silence. The sound is born of silence means it is born of you. It is silence is yourself. The self is the silence. Silence is not an absence of sound. That becomes it is your presence. It is the presence of you that is called silence. And therefore, Mauna Vyakya means it is a Shabda is a pramana to talk about even silence. Silence means it's your being. And therefore, that silentness of your being is called silence. And all the entire universe is born out of that silence. Before the universe is born, it is silence. Before the universe is seen, it is silence. And after it is gone, it is again silence. In between also it is in silence. It is not outside silence, because your being has no outside. Anything that is outside is known to you, and therefore it falls within you. And anything that is inside you, it also is known to you. Anything that is known is within you, and therefore it is not possible that something can be there parallel to you, as along with you. There is nothing parallel to you, parallel to the self, parallel to awareness, and therefore it is always it is you are always aware of the objects, and therefore the objects are within awareness. And therefore it is said here, Yasmin Devascha Vedascha Pavitram Krishnameva Ekatam. All the Vedas, all the purifying factors like Vedas, where you study Vedas and you become the purified, you become purified. At least some words are there which are purificatory, and therefore at least your language becomes purified. And that is enough. When your language becomes purified, your thoughts also become purified, because they are together with one another. Yato vacho nivartante aprapi manasasa. The word and thought are together. Therefore, when the words are purified, your thinking also becomes purified. Yasmin devascha. The devascha means all gods also are there. Vedas are there. Pavitram Krishnam Ekatam Varjet. They're all one. The Vedas become one. Even though we call them four Vedas, but in the truth they are all one. They're all one Vedas. Devas also are one. They have Mukhya Ekatvam. They are, as the truth, they are one. As the truth, we are all in one. We are all one alone. Not in one, we are all one alone. Like in Sushupti, in the deep sleep state, you are not in one, you are one alone. You are Advaitam. You are not in Advaitam, you are Advaitam. Even if you say that the water, the waves are in water, it is meant to talk about, it is meant to say that they are water. The waves are water. The waves are water. The pots are clay. Even though we say that yato vaimani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisamvishanti, tad vijignyasasva tad brahmeti. In this manner it is said by Varuna to Bhrigu, his son. He said, from which everything comes, and on which everything sustained, unto which everything goes back. That is indeed the truth. And please understand the truth by tapas. By tapas means by reflection. That is what Varuna tells the Bhrigu. But then he says, having understood Annam Brahma, he understood that Annam is Brahma, then Prana is Brahma. In this manner, and then again he comes back to his teacher, his father. Annam Brahmet Vijanat, not Jaiva Kalvimani Bhutani Jayanti. In this manner, and Prana is, you can concluded that Prana is Brahman, because without Prana, nobody can exist. Therefore, Prana is there everywhere. Prana means Prana Vayu is there. That is what he thinks. And then again, there is a doubt in his mind. Until the truth is found, the doubts are always there, Jay. And therefore, you should always respect the doubts. You should always respect the doubts, because the doubting mind is you should not say that why do you doubt, and all that you should not say. The doubts are always there until the truth is understood. The doubts are always there. In misconceptions, the doubts will be there. Samshaya Jnanam is always there. Is it snake or is it rope? The doubt is always there. That it is snake alone is a conclusion, but the doubt also is there. Is it really the snake, or is it something else? In this manner, the doubt also can be there. Am I the body? Am I not the body? In this manner also there can be a doubt. And therefore here the doubts also should not be disrespected. And the Devas and Vedas, they all become one with in the truth. They all become one in the truth. Even though we say that everything is born in which, sustained by which, and goes back unto which, everything, even though we say that the prepositions are kept, but in which, etc., but ultimately it is that only. The waves are born in water, sustained by, and goes back unto water. In and by and unto, there are prepositions, but those prepositions are all gone. We say that the waves are water, are meant to say that waves are water. In order to convey the Advaitam alone, these prepositions are there. Prepositions cannot be there. Prepositions are not, they don't come in the way of understanding the truth, Ji. Prepositions need not come in the way of understanding the truth. A person who can understand the truth, he can understand the truth. And a person who cannot understand the truth, even if there are no prepositions, even if you tell him that you are the truth, he will not understand. And taught he will not understand, and untaught how can he understand? And therefore, taught also he cannot understand. And therefore, these problems are there. And therefore, ekatam vrajet. All devas and Vedas, all of them are purificatory. And but then when you worship gods also, you become purified. And when you study Vedas, you become purified. Purification of the thought. When the mind is purified, the mind is quiet also. And the mind is silent. In that silent mind, that is a relative silence. In order to understand the absolute silence, which is your nature, absolute silentness is your nature. And to understand that, you have to be relatively silent. And that means you need the relative silence. You need the relative peace. You need when you need the relative peace, then you need the relative purity also of the mind. If you need the relative purity of the mind, then you are in need of worshipping gods. You are in need of studying the Vedas also. And therefore, Ekatam Vrajet, Manasam Tirtham. It is indeed Manasam Tirtham. It is a tirtha in the form of consciousness. It should not be taken as the thought. It is Manasam Tirtham. It is in the form of the fact. Yasmin Snatva, having bathed in which Snatva, Amrito Bhavet, you become eternal. Amrito Bhavet means one becomes eternal. Having bathed in which, having bathed in the truth, you become eternal. Having bathed in the truth means having understood the truth. You don't have to take it figuratively. Having understood which, you become the true. You have become eternal. You don't have to become eternal. You are already eternal, but then you have to recognize that you are eternal. You have to recognize that you are not the body. The body is only a pratyaya rupaha. Pratyaya rupaha. Every object is only pratyaya rupaha, like the dream objects. The waking objects also are like pratyayas. They are like thoughts. They are all pratyaya rupas, and they don't qualify the truth, and they continue to be they continue to look to be true to you, and therefore you run after them. And but then once you understand that they are only thoughts, they are only the pratyayas, then you feel you have vairagyam. That vairagyam gives you freedom from desire. Vairagyam is something. Vairagyam also facilitates understanding. Without vairagyam also you can't understand. Vairagyam also you need to have. And therefore without vairagyam also you can't be free from desire. And therefore it is said, Snatva Amrito. Therefore you become eternal, not because you are good in becoming. You can become rich, all right, but you don't have to become infinite. You are already infinite, and therefore the self-evident self is the infinite self. Everything is in it. You are inclusive of everything. The subject is inclusive of all the objects. Ekatma pratyaya saram, it is said. Ekatma, even though the objects are many, in every knowledge you are there. Without your being there, you means you are the conscious being. You are not the form. You are only a conscious being. And that conscious being is there. And that conscious being has no gender. The conscious being has no age. The conscious being, even the age falls within time falls within its light. The space also falls within its light. And therefore, and that consciousness that you are, and that consciousness alone that consciousness is full, and recognizing that consciousness is what is called eternity. And the more of it we will see in the next class. Thank you, Ji. Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much. What a disease can do.